I ran to the garage with the phone in my hand, praying it was a mistake. I opened the door and found the space empty, just tire tracks on the dusty floor. My husband's '69 Dodge Charger was gone. My knees buckled. That car was our last hope of saving him. My name is Margaret Wilson, and after one simple phone call, my life was turned upside down. I was at home when the phone rang that Tuesday morning while I was packing my lunch to take to the hospital. My husband, Harold, had been hospitalized for 3 weeks, and I had established a routine. Wake up at 6, prepare home-cooked food because he barely touched that hospital food, and be at his bedside at 8 sharp. I answered without looking at the number, hoping it was the nurse with some update on the tests. "Hello? Good morning, ma'am. My name is Richard Sullivan." The voice on the other end was polite, masculine, with an accent that betrayed good breeding. "Sorry to bother you so early, but I need to talk to you about the '69 Dodge Charger I bought yesterday from your grandson." The fork I was holding slipped from my hand and hit the floor with a metallic clang. "What's up?" My voice was shaky. "What car? What purchase?" "The '69 Dodge Charger, ma'am," he repeated, now with a hint of uncertainty. "Orange, 440 engine. Originally your late father-in-law's, if I'm not mistaken. I paid your grandson $50,000 yesterday afternoon. He said he had family permission." My heart started pounding so hard I could feel it in my ears. No, it couldn't be true. Wait. I held onto the kitchen counter to keep from falling. "Are you telling me my grandson sold my husband's Charger?" "Yes, ma'am. I thought you knew." "That car wasn't for sale," I shouted, and immediately regretted my tone. It wasn't the man's fault. I took a deep breath, trying to control the panic rising in my throat like bile. I'm sorry, Mr. Sullivan, but you don't understand. That car. The words died in my mouth. How could I explain? How could I put into words what that piece of metal meant? "Ma'am, are you okay? Do you want me to call you back later?" "No." I closed my eyes, tears already beginning to flow. "You need to understand. My husband is in the hospital now. He's been there for 3 weeks. He has advanced pancreatic cancer. The doctors said that without an experimental treatment that costs a fortune, he has 6 months at most." I heard silence on the other end, a heavy, awkward silence. "That Dodge Charger belonged to my father-in-law," I continued, the words coming out in a torrent now, as if a dam had burst. "He died 15 years ago and left the car to Harold, my husband. It was the only real inheritance he received. Harold cared for that car as if it were his own son. He would never sell it. Never. My God." The man's voice was low now. "And the worst part, mister, is that car was worth our lives. Literally." I wiped away the tears with the back of my hand. "We had a plan. We were going to raffle off the Charger. It's worth over $250,000, did you know that? $250,000. With that money, we could pay for the experimental treatment, buy Harold more time, maybe even save him." The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear Mr. Sullivan's heavy breathing on the other end of the line. $50,000, I repeated, my voice cracking. My grandson sold his own grandfather's life for $50,000. He sold our hope for peanuts. "Ma'am, I didn't know any of this." His voice was genuinely shocked. "Your grandson told me you were old, that you didn't drive anymore, that the family had agreed to sell. He had documents, power of attorney. Everything seemed fine. Power of attorney, of course. 2 months ago, when Harold was still well, we had given power of attorney to our grandson, Thomas, to handle some paperwork while we took care of Harold's health. Simple banking matters, nothing more. I never imagined he would use it for... He deceived us," I whispered. "Our own grandson stole from us. Ma'am, I'm so sorry, really sorry." Mr. Sullivan sounded genuinely distraught. "Look, let me think about what we can do. I bought the car in good faith, but this is a terrible situation. Give me some time to process all of this, okay? Can you return the car?" I asked, knowing it was an absurd request, but clinging to that last hope like a shipwrecked person clinging to a piece of wood. Technically, yes, but I'd need a refund of the $50,000. That's what I paid. He paused. Can you refund that amount? $50,000. I looked around my modest kitchen. The old, creaky refrigerator. The stove I'd cleaned religiously for 30 years. Our savings had all been drained during Harold's first treatments. Our retirement savings had evaporated in appointments, tests, and medications. No, I admitted, defeat weighing heavily on every word. We don't. I see, he sighed. Look, let me see what I can do. I'll think of something. Could you give me your address and phone number? I'll be in touch soon. I scanned the data mechanically, my mind still trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal. When I hung up, I stood in the middle of the kitchen, staring at my half-eaten lunchbox, at the coffee growing cold in the cup. Then, as if my body was acting on instinct, I dropped everything and ran. I ran down the hall, opened the back door, and crossed the yard. My flip-flops slapped on the cement as I ran toward the detached garage. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe Thomas had sold another car. Maybe... I opened the garage door with trembling hands. The space was empty, completely empty. Only the tire tracks on the dusty ground where that orange Dodge Charger had been parked for 15 years. The scent of oil and leather still lingered in the air, haunting. Still hanging on the wall were the old classic car posters his father-in-law had put up decades ago. My knees gave out. I collapsed right there on the cold garage floor between the tire tracks and the empty space. And I cried. I cried for the betrayal, for the lost hope, for the look I would see in my Harold's eyes when I told him that his father's car, his most precious possession, our last chance, had been sold by his own grandson. How would I tell him this? How could I look into the eyes of the man I loved for 47 years and tell him that our family had stabbed us in the back? I sat there on the cold floor of that empty garage as the morning sun came through the cracks and illuminated the void where there had once been a hope called the '69 Dodge Charger. And in that moment, I realized I had a choice to make, fall apart or fight. I looked at the clock. 7:15 in the morning. Harold was waiting for me at the hospital. But before I tried to call Thomas, his cell phone only gave out of range. How could that idiot have done this to us? We gave him everything. Love, affection, and politeness. So I struggled to my feet, wiped away my tears, and headed home. I finished my lunch with trembling hands, drank the cold coffee in one go, and grabbed my purse. I drove to the hospital on autopilot. I don't remember grabbing my keys, locking my front door, or starting my minivan. My mind was stuck in that empty garage, the tire tracks on the ground, Mr. Sullivan's voice echoing, $50,000. The parking lot at St. I's. Mary's hospital was packed as usual. Tuesday, appointment day. People were coming and going, some in wheelchairs, others carrying bouquets of flowers and balloons with "Get well soon" messages. Life was happening all around me while my own was falling apart. I grabbed my lunchbox from the passenger seat. I'd finished preparing it on automatic, without even tasting anything, and walked to the entrance. My footsteps echoed in the third-floor hallway. Room 304. I turned left down the usual hallway, past the usual waiting room, and greeted the usual nurse on duty. Everything so normal, so routine, but I carried a bomb in my chest. I stopped in front of the door to room 304. I took 3 deep breaths. 4, 5. Trying to find courage, as if courage could be manufactured through oxygen. I opened the door. Harold sat up in bed, propped up on pillows, staring out the window. He'd lost so much weight in the last few weeks that his clothes felt like they belonged to someone else. The blue pajamas I'd brought from home hung loosely on shoulders that had once been broad and strong. The same shoulders that had carried me on my wedding day, that had lifted our daughter to pick mangoes from the tree, that had repaired the roof under the scorching sun. Now they looked like bones covered by thin skin. "Maggie!" His face lit up when he saw me. He still called me by my nickname after all these years. I've been waiting for you. I thought you wouldn't come today. I always come, Harold. I forced a smile as I closed the door. Every single day, you know that. Did you bring food? He pointed to the lunchbox with a weak smile. Because if it's that red gelatin again, I swear I'm out of here. I laughed, a mechanical, empty laugh. I put the lunchbox on the table beside the bed, arranged the wilted flowers in the vase, adjusted the blankets, anything to postpone the inevitable. Maggie. I stopped. I knew that tone. 47 years of marriage teaches you to read between the lines. What happened? He asked, and his blue eyes, still so blue despite everything, pierced me. Nothing, love. Margaret Rose Wilson. He used my full name. He only did that when he was serious. What happened? I pulled up a chair and sat beside the bed, holding his hand. The hand that always held mine. His fingers were cold, thin, with the vein protruding where the nurse had placed the catheter. Harold, my voice trailed off. Something happened. Something bad. I saw concern creep onto his face. Are you sick? Maggie, are you okay? I'm fine. It's not about me. So what is it? I took a deep breath. There was no nice way to say that. The charger. The words came out as a whisper. Harold, the charger's sold. Silence. A silence so heavy it seemed to suck the air out of the room. What? He blinked, as if he didn't understand. What car? The Dodge. Your dad's '69 Charger. Maggie, stop joking around. He tried to laugh, but the laughter died in his throat when he saw my face. Are you serious? I nodded, tears already streaming down my face. What do you mean sold? Sold by whom? I didn't sell anything. His voice rose, and I saw his neck turn red. Harold, calm down, please. Calm down? He tried to sit up straight, but the pain prevented him. He grimaced and held his side. What do you mean my dad's car was sold? It was Thomas, I said quickly, holding both his hands now. Our grandson. He used the power of attorney you gave him. He sold it yesterday for $50,000. The color drained from Harold's face. 50,000? He repeated, his voice trailing off. But that car it's worth over 200. I know. Did the buyer call you? He called. This morning. A man named Richard Sullivan. He didn't know anything, Harold. Thomas said he had permission from the family. Harold stared at me, processing. I saw it sink in completely. I saw the exact moment reality hit him like a runaway train. The Charger. His voice was shaky now. The last piece of him I had, the only thing he left me. He stared into space, his eyes filling with tears. I cleaned that car every Sunday, Maggie. Every Sunday for 15 years. My father sat in the driver's seat, teaching me about engines, about life. It was our time together. I know my love. And the money, he continued, and I saw his breath catch in his throat. The raffle. It was our chance. Our only chance to pay for the treatment. We'll figure it out, Harold. I promise we'll... How? He screamed, and the scream turned into a cough. A dry, painful cough that shook his entire body. How, Maggie? How are we going to pay for $200,000 in treatment? That car was our last hope. The monitors beside the bed began to beep. The heart rate on the screen spiked. 110, 120, 130 beats per minute. Harold, breathe. Please breathe with me. I tried to calm him, but he wouldn't listen. My grandson, he continued, his voice hoarse, his eyes wide. My own grandson stole from me. He sold my life for... The monitor beeped louder. 140 beats. Nurse, Harold put his hand to his chest. Nurse! His breath now coming in short, desperate gasps. I can't breathe. Someone, help! I got up from my chair, ran to the door and opened it. I need help here. 2 nurses came running in from the hallway. One entered the room immediately. The other yelled into the intercom. Code Blue, room 304. Everything became a blur. More doctors came in. Someone pushed me to the corner of the room. I saw Harold lying there, clutching his chest, his face contorted with pain and panic. A young doctor with a stethoscope was checking his vital signs. A nurse was applying something to his IV. "Pressure at 180 over 110, someone shouted. "He's having a hypertensive crisis." The young doctor looked at me. "Ma'am, what happened? Did he receive some bad news?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. "Lady," he practically shouted, "I need to know." He found out that—" The words stuck in his throat. "Out! Now!" An older nurse grabbed my arm. "You need to leave the room." "But he's my husband. And he needs medical attention now. Come on." I was practically dragged out. The door slammed shut in my face. Through the small glass window, I saw the chaos inside. Doctors and nurses crowded around the bed, Harold in the middle. So small, so fragile. I collapsed right there. I slid down the wall until I was sitting on the cold hallway floor, hugging my knees. Other people passed by, visitors, staff, but no one was real. Everything was distant, blurry. I killed my husband. The thought came crystal clear. I killed my husband by telling him about the car. 47 years together, and I just signed his death warrant. I don't know how long I stood there. It could have been minutes. It could have been hours. The hallway was moving around me, but I was trapped in that moment, in Harold's eyes filling with panic, in his broken voice saying, "My own grandson," in the beeping monitors. The door finally opened. The young doctor left, taking off his gloves. I stood up so quickly that everything spun. "How is he?" "Stable. For now." He crossed his arms. "We've managed to control his blood pressure and heart rate. But Mrs. Wilson, what happened in there can't happen again. His heart can't handle that kind of stress. He's extremely weak." "I know. I'm sorry. What made him that way?" He stared at me. "I need to know so I can assess his emotional state." I told him. Quickly, in short sentences. The car, the grandson, the betrayal, the lost money, the lost hope. The doctor was silent when I finished. Then he shook his head. "I understand," was all she said. "Look, Mrs. Wilson, I'll be blunt. Your husband is in a very delicate state. Physically, the cancer is already advanced. But emotionally, finding out something like this could accelerate everything. He needs peace, calm, no additional stress, understand? Can I see him?" He hesitated. "You can, but he's sedated. We gave him something to calm him down. He'll probably sleep for the next few hours." I entered the room slowly, as if I might break something. Harold was lying there, his eyes closed, his breathing finally even. But his face was different. The light had gone out. Even sleeping, he looked defeated. I sat beside the bed and held her hand. Still cold, always so cold now. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm sorry for telling you like that. I'm sorry for not protecting the car. I'm sorry for everything." He didn't answer. Just the slow breathing, the rise and fall of his chest. I looked at Harold sleeping, at the tubes connected to him, at the monitors beeping softly, and something inside me changed. Sadness turned to cold anger, rage, calculated, determined. I took my cell phone out of my bag. I had a call to make, and this time I wasn't going to cry. This time I was going to demand answers. I left Harold's room with my cell phone clutched tightly in my hand. My knuckles were white from squeezing it so tightly. I walked down the hospital stairs. I didn't have the patience to wait for the elevator, and went straight to the outdoor garden, that small courtyard where recovering patients sometimes came to sunbathe. It was empty. Better this way. I sat on a wooden bench, far enough away that no one could hear me, and opened my contact list. His name quickly appeared. Thomas, grandson. The little red heart I had placed there years ago seemed obscene to me now. Pathetic. Before dialing, I took a deep breath. My hand was shaking, but it wasn't from fear. It was pure rage, a rage I didn't know existed within me. 47 years of being a devoted wife, a loving mother, a present grandmother. Always the one who yielded, the one who forgave, the one who understood. Not today. I pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. It was going to go to voicemail. Of course it would. He was avoiding me. The coward knew exactly what he'd done. On the 4th ring, someone answered, and I heard something that made my blood boil. He was laughing. "Grandma!" Thomas's voice sounded loud, excited, with that artificially excited tone of someone trying to impress someone. "Whoa, Grandma, what a surprise! Listen, we're kind of in a rush here, but—" In the background, noise. Lots of noise. Flight announcements in English, the dragging of suitcases, voices speaking in other languages. Airport. He was at the airport. "Thomas," my voice came out low, dangerously low. "Where are you?" "Grandma, look, we're leaving for Italy now," he said quickly, as if speed was synonymous with innocence. "Rome, Grandma. It's always been Amanda's dream. We'll stay for 3 weeks, get to know—" "You sold your grandfather's car?" I exploded. I couldn't hold it in. My anger came out in a scream so loud that a nurse passing by turned around in fright. Silence on the other side, a silence that lasted 2 eternal seconds. Then he laughed. He laughed. "Oh, so the buyer called already?" Thomas said, and there was a casualness in his voice, like we were talking about selling an old sofa. "Look, Grandma, I was going to call and tell you, but—" "Tell? Tell what, Thomas?" I felt the tears coming back, but this time they were tears of rage. "That you stole from us? That you sold your great-grandfather's only left hearth? That you betrayed the trust your grandfather placed in you?" "Geez, Grandma, stop being so dramatic." His voice was irritated now. Irritated, like I was being inconvenient. The car was just sitting there in the garage gathering dust. Nobody uses it. And we needed— "Needed?" He laughed. A bitter, humorless laugh. "Did you need to go to Italy? Is that a need for you?" "Grandma, you don't understand," he sighed, in that condescending way that makes you want to slap someone. "Amanda and I saved for months, but it wasn't enough. This trip is important to us. And Grandpa, look, Grandpa's old. He doesn't even drive this car anymore, so—" "Your grandfather is dying," I screamed. My throat felt like it was tearing from screaming. "He's in the hospital right now, Thomas. He has cancer, advanced cancer, and that car was our only chance to pay for his treatment." I heard a quick intake of breath on the other end. I caught him by surprise. "Good. We were going to raffle off the charger," I continued, my words coming out brokenly. "We were going to get over $200,000. Enough money for the experimental treatment that might give him more time. More time for us to be together. And you sold it for $50,000. $50,000, Thomas. Grandma, I didn't know that." "Didn't you know?" She laughed again, hysterical now. "How did you not know? You knew he was sick. I told you. I called you crying 3 weeks ago saying the diagnosis was bad. But you didn't say it was that serious. I told you it was cancer." The tears were flowing freely now. "And even if you didn't know, Thomas, even if you didn't know, what right did you have to sell something that wasn't yours? That car belonged to your grandfather. It was the inheritance his father left him. It was his memory, and you just— I couldn't finish. Sobs interrupted me. And then I heard her voice. The wife. Amanda. "Give it here," I heard her say in the background, a little muffled. "Let me talk to her." "Amanda, you don't need to—" "Give it here, Thomas." The sound of a phone changing hands, and then that voice. That voice I'd heard at Christmas dinner, on Thomas's birthday. Always so sweet, so polite. But now— "Miss Margaret," she said, her tone pure impatience. "You need to understand something. Mr. Harold is old. He's already lived his life, had his opportunities. Thomas and I are young. We have the right to enjoy it while we can." I was paralyzed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "We're not going to waste this trip over expensive medicine for someone who's already on the verge of death," she continued casually, as if commenting on the weather. "It was an opportunity. We took it. And honestly, $50,000 for an old car that nobody used was actually a good deal." That car was worth $250,000, I whispered, still in shock. So what? She giggled, a giggling. Money is money, isn't it? We got what we needed. Look, Miss Margaret, you're very dramatic. Thomas always says so. You and Mr. Harold always made a big deal out of everything. Dramatic? I repeated. My husband is dying and you call me dramatic? He's old, Mrs. Margaret, she said slowly, as if explaining something obvious to a dumb child. Old people die. It's part of life. Do you want us to sacrifice our lives, our dreams, for someone who's already on his way out? The world stopped. I stopped breathing. It wasn't the words. It was the coldness with which she said them, the naturalness, as if it were obvious. Thomas, I called, trying to find a shred of hope that my grandson, that boy I rocked, who I taught to ride a bike, who slept at my house during the holidays, that he would disagree, that he would tell his wife she was wrong. Thomas, do you agree with this? Do you really think your grandfather, who raised you, who loved you, who gave you everything, you think he doesn't deserve a chance? Silence. And then, Grandma. His voice was uncomfortable but firm. Grandma, Amanda's right. Grandpa's already old. And we can't miss this trip. We deserve to enjoy it while we're young. Something broke inside me at that moment. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't explosive. It was silent. Like when you drop a crystal glass and it shatters into millions of pieces too small to put back together. I'm mortgaging our house, I said, my voice completely dead now, to get money for treatment. The house where you spent your weekends, where we had picnics in the garden, where your mother grew up. I'm going to lose her because of you. Grandma, don't be dramatic. You'll find a way. Your grandfather was sick when he found out, I shouted for the last time. He's sedated now because his blood pressure rose so high that he almost had a heart attack because of what you did. On the other side, I heard the boarding announcement, first in English, then in Italian. Grandma, we need to go, Thomas said quickly. Our flight is calling. We'll talk when we get back, okay? Don't worry. Kisses. Thomas, don't slow. Click. He was speechless. They hung up. They hung up on me. I sat there on that wooden bench with the phone still to my ear, listening to the silence of the deadline signal. Around them, the world went on. People coming and going from the hospital. Cars passing by on the street. Birds singing in the trees. But I was alone. Completely alone. Betrayed by my own blood. For the boy I held when he was 3 days old. Who I bottle-fed when his mother was sick. Who I comforted when he took his first fall. Who I applauded when he learned to read. That boy grew up to be this, a stranger who chose Italy over his own grandfather. I called back. It went straight to voicemail. I called again, and again, and again. He had blocked me. My grandson blocked me. I put my phone back in my bag with trembling hands. I looked up at the sky. It was blue, absurdly blue for such a horrible day, and then I realized something. There was no one to save me from this. There was no police force that could arrest someone for selling something with legal power of attorney. There was no law against being a selfish and cruel grandson. There was nothing I could do but watch my world fall apart. I slowly got up from the bench. My legs were shaking. I walked back into the hospital, up the stairs and down the hallway. I stopped in front of room 304. Through the small glass window, I saw Harold still sleeping. So fragile, so small in that oversized bed. And I thought, how am I going to tell him that our grandson didn't back down? That he didn't regret it? That he chose Italy? The more time passed, the harder it got. I hadn't told Harold about the phone call with Thomas. I didn't have the courage. He woke up from the sedation the next day, weak and confused, and when he asked about the car, I lied. I said I was sorting it out. He looked at me with those tired eyes and just nodded, believing me as he always had. That broke me even more. I was sitting in the chair next to his bed, trying to get him to eat at least half of the soup I'd brought from home, when my cell phone rang. An unknown number. My stomach tightened. Lately, unknown numbers only brought bad news. Hello? Mrs. Wilson? It's Richard Sullivan, the buyer of the Dodge Charger. My heart raced. I looked at Harold, who had his eyes closed, dozing between spoonfuls. Mr. Sullivan, I whispered, rising from my chair and walking to the corner of the room. Hi, how are you? I should ask you that. His voice sounded genuinely concerned. Look, I've spent the last 2 days thinking about your situation. I haven't been able to get it out of my head. And I'd like to talk in person, if possible. Are you still in the hospital? Yes, I am. St. Mary's, room 304. I know. I got the address from your grandson when I bought the car. He paused. Can I come over? Today? I think it would be better if we talked face to face. I looked at the clock on the wall. 2 in the afternoon. Yes, you can. Of course. I'll be there in an hour. He hung up. I put the phone away and returned to my chair, my heart pounding. Harold opened his eyes. Who was it? Nothing important, love. I lied again. I was getting too good at this. Eat some more, go on. 50 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. I opened it and found a man in his 60s, tall with neatly cropped gray hair, wearing dark jeans and a light blue shirt. He was holding a bouquet of flowers and a box of chocolates. Mrs. Wilson? He held out his hand. Richard Sullivan. Nice to finally meet you in person. I shook his hand. It was firm and warm. The hands of someone who had worked all his life. Mr. Sullivan, please come in. He entered the room carefully, almost reverently. His eyes went straight to Harold on the bed. Is this your husband? Yes, Harold Wilson. I put my hand on Harold's shoulder, and he woke up groggily. Honey, this is Mr. Richard Sullivan, the buyer of the Charger. I saw Harold tense immediately. His eyes, previously sleepy, became alert. He looked at me, then back at the man. Richard stepped forward, and to my surprise, held out the bouquet. Mr. Wilson, I brought this for you. And this for you. He handed me the chocolates. I know it doesn't erase anything that happened, but, well, it seemed like the right thing to do. Harold looked at the flowers with an expression I couldn't read. I took the bouquet and placed it in the empty vase on the table. Thank you, Harold said, his voice hoarse. But you didn't have to. I know. Richard pulled out a chair and sat down, bringing himself to Harold's level. A respectful gesture. Mr. Wilson, I came here because I can't stop thinking about your situation, and because I think you and I need to talk, man to man. Harold looked at me. I nodded. He took a deep breath. About what? About the Charger. Richard folded his hands. Your grandson told me a story when he sold the car. He said you were too old to drive, that the car was sitting idle, that the family had decided to sell. He had power of attorney, documents, everything in order. It seemed legitimate. He lied, Harold said bluntly. I know that now, Richard nodded, and I feel terrible. I was deceived, but you were betrayed. It's different. It's worse. What do you want? Harold asked, as bluntly as ever. Keep the car with a clear conscience? Harold! I scolded, but Richard held up his hand. No, it's okay. It's a fair question. He looked Harold in the eye. Mr. Wilson, I've been a classic car collector for 30 years. I have 17 vehicles in my collection. Some are worth a fortune, but none of them have the story the '69 Dodge Charger has. Your wife told me, he glanced at me quickly, then back at Harold, about your father, about Sundays in the garage, about what that car means. Harold looked away, his jaw clenched. I recognized the signs. He was trying not to cry. And I came here, Richard continued, to say that I'm returning the car. My heart stopped. Harold looked back at him, eyes wide. How? I'll give it back, Richard repeated. But I need to be honest with you. I paid $50,000, money that came out of my account. I can return the car, but I'll need that money back. I don't mean any harm, you understand? It's just that I have bills, investments too. $50,000 isn't small. The hope that had arisen died instantly. $50,000. It could have been $1 million. It would have been the same. We don't have it, Harold said, his voice cracking. You must have told us. We're broke. The treatment sucked it all out. I figured, Richard sighed. That's why I came to talk. Because, look, legally, the car is mine. I bought it in good faith. But morally, I feel like a thief, and I don't want to be an accomplice to the betrayal your grandson committed. So what do you propose? I asked, my voice trembling. Richard looked at me, then looked at Harold. I'll give you 72 hours, 3 days. If you come up with the $50,000, I'll return the car immediately, and I'll make sure to accompany you personally to make sure it's safe. If you can't, he paused heavily. Well, then the car stays with me, but I want you to know that I'll take care of it as if it were the last thing I have left on this earth. Harold closed his eyes. 3 days to get $50,000, he laughed, but it was a humorless laugh. It might be 3 years, but it won't be enough. Richard got up from his chair. I understand, but I had to give this a chance. It was the least I could do. He took a card from his pocket and placed it on the table. My phone number. Anything. Call me. Anytime. He walked to the door, but before he left, he turned around. Mr. Wilson? Harold opened his eyes. Your father would be very proud of the man you've become, and of that car. It's been very well taken care of. You can see the love in every detail. Harold didn't answer. He just nodded once, his eyes shining. Richard left. We remained silent. A heavy, suffocating silence. 3 days, Harold finally said. Maggie, where are we going to get $50,000 in 3 days? I looked at him, at the man I'd loved for almost 5 decades. Too thin, too pale, too sick, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. The next morning, Tuesday, I woke up at 5 in the morning. There was only one way out. I put on my best dress, the navy blue one I wore to my niece's wedding, put on lipstick, and tied up my hair. If I was going to do this, I was going to do it with dignity. At 8:15 in the morning, I pushed through the revolving door of the First National Bank. The air conditioning hit me like a cold slap. The bank was empty at that hour, just 2 tellers talking quietly and a woman in the customer service area. I walked up to the information desk. A young woman, no more than 25, greeted me with a professional smile. Good morning. How can I help you? Good morning. My voice was firm, surprisingly firm. I need to talk to you about a home mortgage. Her smile faltered a little. Mortgage? Do you already have a mortgage on your home, or? I have a paid-off house, I interrupted, and I need to mortgage it. Understanding dawned in her eyes. And something else. Pity. I understand. Let me call the finance manager. One moment, please. She disappeared through a door. I stood there, my hands clasped tightly around the strap of my bag. Through the glass window, I could see the street, people passing by, going to work, living normal lives. I was about to throw mine away. Mrs. Wilson? I turned. A man in his 40s, wearing a gray suit and a blue tie, smiled professionally at me. He extended his hand. Charles Morton, financial manager. Miss Jennifer said you want to mortgage a property? Yes, please come with me. We walked down a hallway to a small room with a desk, a computer, and 2 chairs. He offered me one and sat on the other side. So, Mrs. Wilson, he opened a folder. Tell me about the property. I gave all the details. Address, size, year built, how long we lived there. 43 years, I said. We bought it as newlyweds. We paid for it for 20 years. We paid it off 23 years ago. He typed everything into the computer, looked something up, typed more. I see. And how much do you want as a loan? I took a deep breath. $50,000. He raised his eyebrows. 50,000. That's a considerable sum. He studied me. May I ask why? I could lie. I could make up any story, but I was too tired to lie. My husband has cancer. I need the money to resolve a family situation. He nodded slowly, asking no further questions. Professional. I'll do a quick assessment here, he typed further. Well, based on the location and size of the property, your house is worth approximately $180,000 in the current market. $50,000 is feasible, yes. My stomach churned. $180,000. Our entire life was worth $180,000. The interest rate will be 5% per year. The standard term is 10 years, which translates to a monthly payment of approximately $610. Can you afford that? $610 per month for 10 years. Our combined retirement pension, mine and Harold's, was $2,300 a month. Taking away $610, we had $1,700 left to pay all the bills, groceries, medicine. I lied. He looked at me over his glasses, that look that said, I know you're lying, but it's not my problem. Okay, I'll need some documents. ID, CPF, proof of residence, house deed, proof of income. I brought everything. I opened my bag and took out a folder where I had organized all the papers the night before. He took them, examined them one by one, made copies. Perfect. Very organized, Mrs. Wilson. He returned to the computer. I'll generate the contract here. It'll take about 15 minutes. Would you like some coffee? Water? No, thank you. We were silent. He was typing. I was looking out the living room window. From there, I could see the hospital in the distance, the 7-story white building where Harold stood at that very moment, probably waking up, wondering why I was gone. Was I going to tell him that I mortgaged our house, our home? No, I couldn't. He was already too fragile. If he knew, he would have made things worse. He would have tried to stop me. He would have told me to forget about the car, that it wasn't worth it. But it was worth it. It was worth it because it was the last thing left of his father. It was worth it because it was our chance to pay for his treatment. It was worth it because I wasn't going to let our grandson win. The printer started spitting out paper. Charles grabbed it all, organized it, and clipped it in. There you go. He turned the contract toward me. It's 12 pages long. Do you want to read it all, or would you prefer me to explain the main points? Please explain. He spent the next 10 minutes explaining clauses, fees, late fees, and conditions for foreclosure. Words like default, seizure, and auction floated in the air. If we didn't pay, we would lose the house. Simple as that. Any questions, Mrs. Wilson? I had millions, but none of them would change anything. No. Then I need you to sign here, here, and here. He pointed to 3 red X's across the contract, and initial each page in the bottom right-hand corner. I took the pen he offered, a regular bank pen with the First National logo. I looked at the first page, at the first signature line. I, Margaret Rose Wilson, hereby declare that I am aware that I am mortgaging my property. My hand trembled. The pen danced across the paper. Mrs. Wilson? Charles's voice sounded distant. Are you okay? I am, I lied for the 3rd time that morning. I put the tip of the pen to the paper, and that's when I felt it. The first tear fell, hot, and fell directly onto the contract. It left a round, wet stain right next to the signature line. Oh, I choked. I'm sorry, More tears came. I couldn't hold them back. 43 years in that house. 43 years of memories. The garden where I planted roses. The kitchen where I cooked 1,000 dinners. The bedroom where I loved my husband. The living room where I rocked my daughter. The balcony where we drank coffee watching the sunset. I was selling all that. Mrs. Wilson, Charles held out a box of tissues. Are you sure about this? Because once you sign, there's no going back. If you default, you lose your house. Do you understand the seriousness of this? I grabbed a tissue. I wiped away the tears. I looked out the window again. The hospital. 7th floor. Somewhere in there, Harold was alive, breathing, waiting for me. I'm sure, he said. And I signed. Margaret Rose Wilson. My handwriting was shaky, tear-stained, but legible. I put the pen on the table. There. My voice came out hoarse. Charles took the contract, checked all the signatures, stamped it, and dated it. The money will be available in your account within 48 hours. He handed me a copy. This is your copy. Keep it safe. I grabbed the paper, still warm from the printer. That paper was worth my entire house. I got up. Legs were shaking. Thanks. Mrs. Wilson? He walked me to the door of the small room. I hope everything works out. With your husband. With everything. I nodded without looking at him. If I did, I would cry again. I walked slowly from the bench. The sun outside was too strong, too hot. The world continued as normal while mine fell apart. I got in the car and sat there, holding the contract. 48 hours. In 2 days, I would have $50,000. $50,000 bought with my home mortgage. The house where I wanted to die of old age. Where I imagined watching my grandchildren grow up. Where I planned to spend my final days with Harold. All of this now belonged to the bank. I glanced in the rearview mirror. My reflection stared back at me. A 72-year-old face. Tired? Wrinkled. Red eyes. You did the right thing. I whispered to my reflection. You did what you had to do. But then why did it feel like I had just sold my soul? I started the minivan and drove back to the hospital. Harold couldn't know. Never. If he found out I'd mortgaged the house, he'd be worse off. He might even give up treatment out of guilt. No, he wouldn't know. I would carry that weight alone. As always, I carried everything. Because that's what wives do. That's what mothers do. That's what grandmothers do. They protect their family. Even when their own family stabs them in the back. Even when it costs everything you have. I parked at the hospital. I grabbed my purse. I hid the contract deep inside, under my wallet, my cell phone, and my tissues. I took 3 deep breaths. I put on lipstick again. I fixed my hair. And I entered. With a smile on his face. Because Harold couldn't see, I couldn't know the price I had just paid. For him, for us, for a few more months together. Even if it cost me my house, even if it cost me my soul, it was worth it. It had to be worth it. 48 hours after signing the mortgage, the money was in my account. $50,000. I immediately called Mr. Sullivan and we scheduled the next day. He would bring the car back and I would make the transfer. It was resolved, but it wasn't. Something inside me couldn't let it go. It was Thursday night. Harold was asleep in the hospital bed, finally resting after a difficult day. The doctors had increased the dosage of one of his medications, and he'd been nauseous all afternoon. I'd stood there, holding the bowl while he vomited, wiping his face with a damp towel, whispering that it would pass. Now he was asleep, breathing heavily but regularly. I was sitting in the uncomfortable chair next to the bed, the chair that had become familiar with my body shape from spending so much time there. My phone was in my hand. I hadn't intended to open it, but my fingers worked on autopilot. Instagram. I don't know why I opened it. Masochism, maybe, or that unhealthy need to rip the scab off the wound to see if it still bleeds. The first photo that appeared on the feed was his. Thomas, my grandson. The photo had been posted 3 hours ago. He was in a gondola in Venice, with that woman beside him, Amanda. The two of them embraced, she in an expensive red dress, he in a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves. Behind them, the Grand Canal. Golden sunset light. Perfect, cinematic. They were smiling, those wide, exaggerated smiles of people who want to prove to the whole world that they're happy. The caption read, "Living the dream. Venice is more beautiful than we imagined." I felt something break in my chest. Scroll through the feed. More photos. 2 hours earlier, them in a restaurant. Table set with white tablecloths, candles, glasses of red wine, sophisticated dishes I didn't even know the name of. A romantic dinner at the best restaurant in Venice. Life's too short not to enjoy it. 6 hours earlier, the two toasting with glasses of champagne in some fancy bar. Italian Prosecco is something else. Cheers to life. Each photo was a stab in the back. Each caption, a spit in my face. I looked at Harold sleeping, at the tubes connected to him, at the monitor beeping softly beside him, at the IV bag hanging there. Then I looked back at the photos, at the smiles, at the luxury, at the staged happiness. $50,000. That's what cost that fake happiness. $50,000 worth his grandfather's life. My fingers moved on their own. I dialed Thomas's number. He called. Once, twice, 4. Post office box. I called again. He rejected the call. I opened WhatsApp. I typed with trembling fingers. Thomas, answer the phone. We need to talk. 2 blue ticks appeared instantly. Visualized. I waited. 1 minute, 2, 5. Nothing. He read it and ignored it. I typed again. Your grandfather is very ill. Don't you even want to know how he is? Visualized. Silence. I tried one more time. At least have the decency to answer. Visualized. And then the 3 dots appeared. He was typing. My heart raced. Finally, he was going to... The message arrived. Grandma, I'm traveling. I'll call when I get back. Take advantage of this time to rest. Kisses, kiss. He finished with kiss, as if it were normal, as if everything was okay. I typed the reply with hands shaking with anger. You sold your grandfather's car to pay for this trip. While you're posting pictures of yourself at expensive restaurants, he's here in the hospital dying. Dying, Thomas. Do you understand that? To send. 2 ticks. 2 blue ticks. Visualized. The 3 dots appeared again. Gone. Appeared. Gone. Then, Grandma, you're being dramatic again. Grandpa will be fine. You always exaggerate everything. Now let me enjoy my trip, please. We'll talk when I get back. Dramatic. He called me dramatic. I looked at Harold, at the man I'd loved for nearly 5 decades, so thin I could see the bones of his shoulders through his pajamas, at his pale face, the deep circles under his eyes, and the cracked lips. I pressed the power button again. Post office box. Again. On the 10th try, he finally answered. Grandma, stop! His voice sounded irritated. In the background, music, laughter, restaurant noise. You're calling me non-stop. I'm at a dinner party. And I'm in a hospital, I screamed. I didn't care if I woke Harold. I didn't care if the nurse in the hallway heard. Your grandfather is dying, and you're having dinner at an expensive restaurant with the money you stole from us. Oh my God, Grandma, you won't stop. I heard Amanda laugh in the background. Look, I didn't steal anything. The car was just parked there. I sold it. I used the money. That's it. It's over. Stop chasing me. Chase? I'm your grandma. And I'm an adult, he shouted back. I don't need to ask permission to live my life. Grandpa already lived his. Now it's my turn. His time isn't over yet. My voice cracked. He's still here. He's still fighting. And you just gave up on him. Silence on the other side. Then Amanda picked up the phone. Ms. Margaret. Her voice was pure ice. I'll be very clear. Thomas isn't going to torture himself over an old man who's already in the ICU. We deserve this trip. We worked hard. We saved money. And yes, we used the money for the car too. And you know what? We don't regret it. So stop calling. Stop texting. Stop nagging. When we get back, if we want, we'll come by. Until then, leave us alone. She hung up. I stood there with the phone to my ear, listening to the silence. I looked at the screen, at the still open photos, at the smiles, at the luxury. Then I looked around. Room 304. Peeling white walls, the smell of disinfectant, the monitor beeping, an IV dripping, my husband sleeping, breathing heavily, and me, sitting in that hard chair, wearing the same clothes I wore 2 days ago because I didn't have time to go home and change. Hair tied in a messy bun, no makeup, dark circles under my eyes. On the table next to me was my wallet. I opened it and counted the coins that were left. $3.47. That's what I had until I received my pension next week. I glanced at the coffee machine in the hallway. A coffee cost $1.25. I'd had the last one yesterday. Since then, nothing. No coffee, no lunch, no dinner. I ate the leftovers Harold couldn't eat from his lunchbox. $3.47. While my grandson toasted with $100 a bottle champagne. The contrast was so absurd that I almost laughed. Almost. But I couldn't. Because there was nothing funny anymore. Just pain. I put my phone away. I wasn't going to look at it anymore. I wasn't going to torture myself anymore. I got up from the chair and dragged myself to the bed. I sat on the edge, careful not to wake Harold. I took his hand. That wrinkled, cold, age-spotted hand. The hand that held mine at the altar. That held our daughter when she was born. That fixed the roof, changed tires, planted flowers in the garden. Now so fragile it looked like it would break. I promise you one thing, I whispered, more to myself than to him. Tomorrow we'll get the car back, and we'll get this treatment, somehow. Even if I have to sell everything, even if I have to beg, we'll get it. Harold didn't answer. He just continued sleeping. But I made that promise, and I was going to comply. Because unlike my grandson, I don't give up on the people I love. Friday morning, the day Mr. Sullivan would bring the car back, I woke up at 5, as always. But this time it wasn't just insomnia. It was anticipation, anxiety, hope. At 10 o'clock in the morning, he would arrive in the Charger. I had already arranged the transfer of the $50,000. Everything was ready. The bank confirmed the funds were available. All that was left was to make the transaction. The car would return home. And with it, our chance to raffle off and get the money for the treatment. I arrived at the hospital at 7:30. Harold was awake, eating the breakfast the nurse had brought, dry toast and weak tea. He pushed his food around on his plate, not really eating. "Good morning, love." I kissed her forehead. "Good morning, Maggie." He looked at me. "Did you sleep at home?" I lied with my head. I didn't say I'd stayed up all night calculating how long it would take to raise $250,000 through the raffle, how many people we'd need to reach, how we'd publicize it. "Harold." I sat on the edge of the bed. "Mr. Sullivan is bringing the car back today." His eyes lit up. For the first time in days, I saw something other than pain and exhaustion. "Same?" "Exactly. I got the money. He'll come here at 10 in the morning and we'll settle everything." "How did you get 50,000, Maggie?" He frowned suspiciously. He knew me too well. "It doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that your dad's car is coming back, and we'll raffle it off. Everything will be fine." He looked at me for a long time. He knew I was hiding something, but he didn't insist. He just squeezed my hand. "Thank you," he whispered. The hours dragged on. 8, 8:30, 9. At 9:40, my cell phone rang. "Mrs. Wilson? Richard Sullivan. I'm on my way to the hospital. 10 minutes. "Okay, I'm in room 304. I hung up. I looked at Harold. "He's coming." Harold tried to sit up straighter in bed. He adjusted his pajamas. He ran a hand through his thinning hair. He wanted to look presentable. 10 minutes passed, then 15, 20. Knock on the door. "Come in," I said. The door opened and Mr. Sullivan came in. But he was not alone. There was another person with him, a younger man, about 40, dark suit, leather briefcase. "Mr. and Mrs. Wilson," Richard greeted. "This is James Parker, my lawyer. I brought him to ensure that the entire transfer is done legally, without any future problems." Lawyer. Sure, it made sense. "Nice to meet you." I shook James's hand. "The pleasure is mine." He smiled gently. Richard approached the bed. "Mr. Wilson, how are you feeling?" "Better knowing my dad's car is coming back," Harold said, his voice weak but firm. "About that." Richard pulled out a chair. James stood discreetly. "I wanted to talk before we make the transfer. Do you have a few minutes?" Something in his tone made me alert. "Of course," he said. Richard took a deep breath. He looked at Harold, then at me, then at his hands, as if choosing his words. "I've spent the last 3 days thinking a lot about this situation," he began. "About what happened. About you guys. About that car." We remained silent, waiting. "And I did some research. Sorry if I was intrusive, but you need to understand. I'm a businessman, a collector. I like to understand who I'm dealing with." My stomach tightened. "Research? About us?" "I discovered a few things," he continued. "I discovered that Mr. Harold worked for 42 years as a mechanic, that Mrs. Margaret was a primary school teacher for 38 years, that they lost a daughter in a car accident 18 years ago, that they raised their grandson alone for a time after his mother, their daughter, passed away. Tears welled up in my eyes when I heard our Anne's name. I discovered you're decent people, honest, hard-working, the kind of people who built this country with their own hands. He looked at Harold. And I found out about your cancer, about the experimental treatment, about the cost. Mr. Sullivan, what are you getting at? I asked, my voice trembling. He finally looked me in the eyes. I want to get to the point that I can't accept that $50,000. The world stopped. What do you mean? Harold said. I'll return the car, but I don't want your money. But you said... My mind couldn't process. I know what I said. He raised his hand. But I changed my mind. I spent 3 days thinking about it, and I came to the conclusion that it would be wrong. Wrong to accept money from you. Money that you desperately need. Mr. Sullivan, my voice came out strangled. I don't understand. You paid $50,000. You have the right... I have the right legally, he agreed. But morally? No. Morally, it would be like stealing from you too. Being an accomplice to your grandson's betrayal. Harold tried to speak but started coughing. I took the glass of water and gave it to him. Mr. Sullivan, I managed to say when Harold calmed down. That's very generous, but we can't accept it. It wouldn't be fair to you. And would it be fair to you to lose the car? And the $50,000? He asked. Because that's what will happen if I accept the money. You'll lose your car again to pay for treatment that costs $250,000. And you'll still have a $50,000 debt on the mortgaged house. My heart froze. How do you know about the mortgage? I did some research, he said, not sounding arrogant, just factual. I found out that 3 days ago you mortgaged your house, the house you lived in for 43 years. I looked into the information because I wanted to understand where that money was coming from. And when I found out... He stopped. He looked at the ground. When I found out, I couldn't sleep for the last 2 nights. I kept thinking, this couple is selling their house, their home, everything they built together, because of their grandson's mistake, because of the greed of a boy who betrayed them. Harold looked at me. Did you mortgage the house? His voice was low, hurt. I need it, Harold. Did you mortgage our house, Maggie? It was the only way to get the car back, to have a chance. And you didn't tell me? Tears ran down his face. Because you would forbid me. Because you would get worse. And you think I want you to lose our home because of me? Enough! Richard's voice cut through our argument, firm but not aggressive. With all due respect, stop, both of you. We were silent. I was crying. Harold was crying. Richard got up from his chair and stood between us. I'm not taking your money. The car is yours, free, no charges. He looked at James. My lawyer here has all the paperwork ready, clean transfer. The charger goes back into Mr. Harold's name, today, now. Mr. Sullivan, I began, but he raised his hand again. I'm not done yet. He took a deep breath. And there's more. About the treatment. What about the treatment? Harold asked, wiping away his tears. Richard looked at James, who opened his briefcase and took out some papers. I spoke with Dr. Morrison, the oncologist in charge of your case, Richard said. With your permission, of course, I accessed your medical records. I wanted to understand exactly what we're talking about, how much it costs, what the chances are. And, my voice was a whisper, and the experimental treatment costs $240,000. It has a 40% chance of adding 2 to 5 years to your life. He looked at Harold. Those are good odds. It's worth a try. I know it's worth it, Harold said bitterly. But we don't have that kind of money. Even with the raffle, it would be difficult. I'll pay, Richard said. Absolute silence. I thought I had heard wrong. What? I whispered. I'll pay for the treatment. $240,000. Everything. And I'll cancel the mortgage on your house. You keep the car, the house, and the treatment. He crossed his arms. No debt, no commitments. It wasn't possible. It wasn't real. I had passed out. I was hallucinating. Why? Was all I could say. Why would you do that? Richard smiled, a sad smile. Because I collect cars because I love stories, Mrs. Wilson. Every car in my collection has a story. The '67 Mustang belonged to a World War II pilot. The '63 Corvette was restored by a father and son for 10 years. The '59 Cadillac walked a bride down the aisle. He pointed to the window, as if he could see beyond. But none of those stories compare to your '69 Dodge Charger, a car passed down from father to son. That was lovingly cared for 15 years. That represented not just memory, but hope, life, the future. He looked at us again. When I bought that car, I bought just one object. But now I understand that I don't deserve to own that car if it means destroying its history. The story needs to continue. And for that, he pointed at Harold, you need to live. Mr. Sullivan. Harold was sobbing now. I can't take this. It's too much. It's too much. You can and you will accept, Richard said firmly. Because I've already decided. And once I decide something, I don't go back on it. But why? I repeated. You don't know us. Why would you do something like that? Richard was silent for a long moment. Then he sighed. Because 32 years ago, his voice grew quiet, I lost my father. Cancer, too. At the time, there was an experimental treatment. It was expensive, very expensive. But I was young, ambitious, building my business. I thought I couldn't take money out of the company. I thought I had time, that he would get better. Tears appeared in his eyes. He died 6 months later. And you know what I discovered? That my company grew. I became rich. I built a fortune. But not a day goes by that I don't think, what if I had paid for that treatment? What if he had had a few more years? A few more Christmases together? A few more conversations? He quickly wiped away the tears. I can't save my father, but I can save Mr. Harold, and maybe, just maybe, that will redeem some of what I didn't do. He looked at me. And your story, Mrs. Wilson, your love for this man, your willingness to sell your home, your life, for him, that deserves to be rewarded, not destroyed. I collapsed. I just broke down. I fell into the arms of that stranger, that man I'd met a few days earlier on the phone, and cried. I cried out everything I'd been holding in. All the anger, all the fear, all the despair, all the betrayal. And for the first time in weeks, I cried with relief, of hope. Thank you, I managed to say between sobs. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Richard hugged me back, a firm, fatherly hug. Don't thank me, he whispered. And be happy, just live. That's the only thing I ask in return. When I finally broke free, I looked at Harold. He was crying too. But for the first time in so long, I saw something on his face besides pain. Via hope. Mr. Sullivan. Harold held out a trembling hand. I have no words. Richard shook his hand carefully. No need for words, Mr. Wilson. You just need to heal. And then when you're better, I want you to take me for a ride in that Charger. Deal? Harold laughed. He cried and laughed at the same time. Deal. James, the lawyer, who had been silent the whole time, finally spoke. Well, now that we've reached an agreement, let's get the paperwork done. Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, I'll need some signatures, and I'll contact the hospital to arrange direct payment for the treatment. We signed papers. Lots of papers. Car transfer, mortgage cancellation, authorization to pay for treatment. With each signature, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. When we finished, Richard stood up. The Charger is parked downstairs. The keys are with the security guard at the front desk. As soon as Mr. Harold is discharged, you can pick him up. He walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned around one last time. Oh, and about your grandson, he said, his tone changing, growing colder. Let him stay in Italy. Let him post the pictures, spend the money. Because when he comes back, he'll find he lost much more than he gained. He lost you. And that's a loss no amount of money can buy back. And he left. We were alone, Harold and I. We looked at each other, and then we laughed. We laughed and cried at the same time, like two people who just escaped death. Because that's exactly what it was. A miracle. An impossible, absurd, inexplicable miracle. An angel in the form of a car collector. Maggie, Harold pulled me close. "We'll be fine." "Go," I agreed. And for the first time in months, I believed it. "We'll be fine." A week has passed since Mr. Sullivan's miracle. The Dodge Charger returned to our garage. Harold wasn't yet strong enough to see it in person, but I took pictures, showing him every angle. I saw his eyes light up like they hadn't in so long. We hadn't heard from Thomas. He kept posting photos from Italy, Rome, Florence, Milan. Each post was a stab, but it didn't hurt as much anymore. We had more important things to worry about. Harold was alive. He was fighting. He was winning. That was all that mattered. Until that Friday morning, 2:13 in the morning. I was at home. The doctors had temporarily discharged Harold to undergo treatment as an outpatient, returning to the hospital only for sessions. He slept in his room, finally in the comfort of his own bed after weeks in the hospital. I was in the living room, blanket around my shoulders, watching one of those stupid late-night shows because I couldn't sleep. My body hadn't gotten used to Harold being home yet. I was constantly on high alert, waiting for some sign that he needed me. When the cell phone rang in the middle of the early morning silence, my heart almost jumped out of my chest. I grabbed it quickly, before Harold woke up. Unknown number. International. "Hello? Mrs. Margaret." The voice on the other end was hysterical, screaming, crying. "Mrs. Margaret, for the love of God." I recognized it immediately. Amanda, my grandson's wife. "Amanda?" I got up from the couch. "What? He's been kidnapped!" She screamed so loudly I had to pull the phone away from my ear. "Thomas has been kidnapped!" The world stopped. "What? What do you mean kidnapped?" "We were coming back from dinner," she sobbed uncontrollably. "There were two men. They grabbed him. They pushed me. They took him. They took my husband." "Calm down." I tried to keep my voice steady, but my hands were already shaking. "Breathe, Amanda. Tell me exactly what happened." "We were heading back to the hotel." Her voice came out in broken spurts. 10:30 at night, dark street, two men on a motorcycle. They stopped in front of us. They had guns. They grabbed Thomas. They threw him on the motorcycle. They drove off. "Did you call the police?" "I called, but they aren't doing anything," she screamed. "They said they need time to investigate, but they don't have time." "Why? What do you mean?" "Because they called me." Amanda was in a complete panic now. "Half an hour later, a man called. He said he has Thomas. He said if I don't pay $20,000 in 48 hours, they're going to kill him." $20,000. I felt my legs weaken. I sat back down on the couch. "Amanda, wait. Are you sure this isn't a scam? Did you talk to Thomas? Did you hear his voice?" "They let him talk," she cried. "He said, 'Amanda, help me. Please help me.' And then they cut it off. It was his voice, Mrs. Margaret. It was him." My mind raced, trying to process, trying to understand. My grandson, kidnapped in Italy. And what did the Italian police say? "They're going to investigate, but investigating takes time, and I don't have 48 hours. She screamed desperately. "Mrs. Margaret, I need help. I need this money. I need to save my husband. $20,000. I looked around the room. At the house I'd almost lost. At the hallway where Harold slept. At the life that had almost fallen apart. "Amanda, we don't have that money. How can't you?" Her voice became high-pitched. "What about your Harold's treatment? You got money for the treatment." It was different. Someone helped us. But we have nothing left. "Then ask this person again," she begged. "For the love of God, Mrs. Margaret, they're going to kill Thomas. They're going to kill your grandson." I felt something break inside me. My grandson. The same one who cheated on me, who sold his grandfather's car, who called me dramatic, who chose Italy over family, but still, he was still my grandson. The boy I rocked, the boy I taught to tie his shoes, the boy who slept in my lap when he had nightmares. I'll see what I can do," I heard my voice say. 48 hours, Amanda screamed. "That's all we have. Please, please, Mrs. Margaret." She hung up. I sat there in the dark of the room with the phone in my hand. Then I got up. I walked to the bedroom. I turned on the lamp. Harold? I touched his shoulder gently. Harold? Wake up. He opened his eyes slowly, confused. Maggie? What time is it? 2:30 in the morning. I sat on the edge of the bed. Something happened. Something bad. I saw panic take over his face. What? The treatment? Did the doctors call? No, it's not you. I grabbed his hand. It's Thomas. I told him everything, every detail, the kidnapping, the men on the motorcycle, the phone call, the ransom demand. 48 hours. Harold was silent when I finished. He just looked at me. $20,000, he finally said. Yes. To save the boy who betrayed us. Yes. More silence. What do you want to do? He asked. I don't know, I admitted, tears welling up. I don't know, Harold. Part of me wants to say it's his problem, that he chose to go to Italy, chose to betray us, and now he has to deal with the consequences. But he's our grandson, Harold added. He sighed deeply. Yes. He sat up in bed with difficulty, and I helped, arranging the pillows behind him. We don't have $20,000, Maggie, he said, pragmatic as ever. Even if we did, there wouldn't be time to send it to Italy. International transfers take days. I know. And even if we could, how can we guarantee they won't kill him anyway after taking the money? I know, I repeated helplessly. Harold picked up his cell phone from the bedside table. Let's call the police. At least report it. We called 911 and explained the situation. The operator was polite but direct. Sir and Madam, in cases of international kidnapping, the American police have no jurisdiction. You should contact the American embassy in Italy and the local Italian police. But his wife already called the Italian police, I protested, and they said it's going to take a while. Unfortunately, this is standard procedure, ma'am. I recommend you also contact the FBI. They can assist American citizens at risk abroad. We wrote down the numbers she gave us, but we knew. The paperwork would take days, maybe weeks. Thomas had 48 hours. We hung up. We sat there, sitting on the bed, in silence. The clock on the wall read 3:15 in the morning. Maggie, Harold said softly. That woman, Amanda, do you trust her? I looked at him. What do you mean? She's the same one who laughed when you called in despair. The same one who called you dramatic. The same one who said I was old anyway. He frowned. And now all of a sudden she's desperately asking for help? Do you think it's a lie? I don't know, he admitted. But something doesn't add up. Why would kidnappers ask for $20,000? It's too specific an amount, too small for a real kidnapping. I thought about it. He was right. $20,000 wasn't a kidnapping sum. Kidnappings demanded hundreds of thousands. Millions. But she said she heard his voice, I argued. It could have been recorded. It could have been edited. It could be a lot of things. Harold took my phone. Give me Richard Sullivan's number. Mr. Sullivan? Why? Because he has money. He has connections, and he has resources we don't have. Harold was already dialing. If anyone can help us uncover the truth about this, it's him. The phone rang. Once, twice, 3 times. It was going to go to voicemail. After all, it was 3:20 in the morning. On the 5th ring, someone answered. Hello? Mr. Sullivan's sleepy voice. Mr. Sullivan, this is Harold Wilson. Sorry to call so late, but... Mr. Wilson? Did something happen with the treatment? His voice instantly became alert. No, it's not that. It's something else. Our grandson. Harold explained everything. I listened from the side, watching his expression change as he spoke. On the other side, silence when Harold finished. Then, that doesn't make sense. Mr. Sullivan's voice was thoughtful now. $20,000 is a very small sum, and the timing is very suspicious. That's what I thought, Harold agreed. Give me a few hours, Sullivan said. I have a friend in Rome, a former investigator now working in private security. I'll call him, see what he can find out. But don't do anything yet, okay? Don't transfer any money. Don't contact these alleged kidnappers. Wait for me to get back. Okay. And Mr. Wilson? Sullivan paused. Breathe, If it's true, we'll sort it out. If it's a scam, well, then we'll sort it out too, one way or another." He hung up. We stood there, waiting. At 4 a.m, I called Amanda back. She answered on the first ring. "So, did you get the money?" "Amanda, calm down." I tried to keep my voice steady. "We're working on it, but I need you to send me some information. Give me the number the kidnappers called and send me the audio if you recorded it." "I didn't record it," she screamed. "I was in shock." Okay, but give me the number." She passed. I wrote it down. "And where are you now?" "At the hotel. Where else would I be?" "Which hotel?" "Hotel Diplomatic. Why so many questions? Where's the money?" "We're trying to get it, Amanda. I just need some time." "No time." She hung up on me. I passed all the information to Mr. Sullivan via message. And then we wait. Dawn arrived. 6 a.m, 7, 8. Neither of us could sleep. We stayed in the living room, drinking coffee, checking our phones every few minutes. At 9:43, the phone rang. "Mr. Sullivan, I've found out a few things." His voice was serious. "And you need to hear it. Can I come over?" "You can," Harold said immediately. "I'll be there in 30 minutes. Exactly 30 minutes later, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and Mr. Sullivan came in. But he didn't have his usual expression. He was somber, tense. "Sit down," he said. We sat down. My heart was beating wildly. Richard took a deep breath. "My friend in Rome investigated, and you're not going to like what we found." "What is it?" I asked, my voice trembling. He looked me straight in the eyes. "Amanda is lying about everything." The silence that followed Mr. Sullivan's words was deafening. "What do you mean, lying?" I managed to ask. Richard opened the folder he had brought with him and spread some printed photos on the coffee table. "My friend Marco worked all night. First, he went to the Hotel Diplomatic where she said she was staying. He pointed to a photo of the hotel. He checked the records. Thomas and Amanda did indeed stay there, but they checked out 3 days ago." "Check out?" Harold frowned. "But she said she was there." "She lied." Richard moved on to the next photo. It was a screenshot from social media. Marco managed to access her private profiles she doesn't share publicly. And look what he found. The photo showed Amanda, but not with Thomas, with another man, an Italian man, dark hair, unshaven, tattoos on his arms. The two of them kissing, and the date posted 2 days ago. My stomach churned. "Who is this?" I asked. "His name is Dante Rossi. He's 32 years old. He has a criminal record in Italy." Richard added another photo, a mugshot. "He's been arrested for scams, fraud, and forgery. He was released from prison 8 months ago." "Oh my God!" Harold ran his hand over his face. "It gets worse," Richard continued. "Marco discovered that Amanda and Dante have known each other for over a year, even before she met Thomas. There are records of conversations, money transfers, and tickets she bought for him to come to the United States last year. She planned it all," I whispered. "From the beginning." "Yes," Richard nodded gravely. "She got close to Thomas on purpose, married him, manipulated him into selling your car, all calculated. The money from the sale, $50,000. They used some of it for the trip, yes. But Marco tracked the transfers. $35,000 was transferred to an account in Italy, Dante's account. That..." Harold didn't finish the sentence, but the hatred was clear on his face. "And the kidnapping?" I asked. "Is that a lie too?" Richard became serious. "No, and that's where it gets complicated." He pulled up another photo. "The kidnapping is real, but not the way she told it." The photo showed an abandoned building, broken windows, graffiti on the walls. Marco has contacts in the Italian police. They were investigating Dante for other crimes when this happened. And they discovered something. He looked at us. "Thomas is being held captive, but not by random kidnappers. Then by whom?" Harold was tense. "By Amanda and Dante." The world stopped again. "What?" My voice came out strangled. "Apparently, Thomas found out about her affair. 3 days ago, he saw messages on her phone. He found out about Dante, about the plans, about everything, Richard explained. They argued. He threatened to go to the police, annul the marriage, report her. And then, so what? Then Dante showed up. He and Amanda drugged Thomas. They took him to the basement of an abandoned building on the outskirts of Rome. They locked him there. Richard added another photo, a blurry surveillance photo showing two men carrying a third. This is the last image captured by a security camera near the scene. I felt my vision darken. My grandson is in jail? For 3 days? Yes, Richard confirmed. And the call Amanda made to you? It was to get more money, the final scam. $20,000 that she would take and disappear with Dante, leaving Thomas there. But she said she heard his voice. That he begged. It's probably true, Richard said darkly. They must have forced him to record something. Or she actually let him talk on the phone, but under threat. All part of the ploy to make it believable. Harold got to his feet unsteadily. We have to do something. He might be hurt. He might be dying. The Italian police are already aware. Richard raised his hands, trying to calm us down. Marco gave us all the information. They're organizing a rescue operation. But it will take a few hours to prepare. They need to locate exactly where he is, surround the area, and ensure security. A few hours? I shouted. He's been without food, water, or help for 3 days. I know. Richard came to me and put his hands on my shoulders. I know, Margaret. That's why Marco is rushing everything he can. He has good connections. They're prioritizing the case. What about Amanda? Harold asked, his voice filled with hatred. Where is she now? Probably with Dante, Richard said. But the police are tracking her. She'll be arrested too. They both will. I collapsed on the couch, hands trembling, heart racing. My grandson who betrayed me, who hurt me, who made bad choices, was tied up in some basement, suffering, probably from hunger, thirst, fear. And the guilt hit me like a train. If he hadn't gone to Italy, if he hadn't sold the car, if he hadn't met that woman. No. Harold sat down beside me, as if reading my thoughts. Don't blame yourself, Maggie. None of this is our fault. But if we had realized it sooner, if we had suspected her. What? Harold held me firmly by the shoulders. She fooled everyone, even Thomas. She's a professional. She's a con artist. We had no way of knowing. Mr. Sullivan's cell phone rang. He answered quickly. Marco? Silence as he listened. Yes, got it. When? More silence. Okay, keep us posted. He hung up and looked at us. They've located the building. They'll be entering in 2 hours. Marco will broadcast everything to us in real time. Video call. 2 hours, 120 minutes, the longest 2 hours of my life. 10:45 in the morning. The three of us were sitting around the dining table. Mr. Sullivan's laptop was open in front of us. The screen showed Marco, a man in his 50s, graying hair, a weathered face, wearing a bulletproof vest. Behind him, Italian police officers were preparing. Weapons, shields, tactical gear. Are you listening? Marco's voice came from the computer speakers. He spoke in English with a strong Italian accent. We are, Richard replied. Okay, I'll leave the camera on. You'll see everything. It might be intense. Are you sure you want to watch? I looked at Harold. He looked at me. We respond together. Marco nodded and clipped a small camera to his vest. The image was blurry but visible. The building was exactly as pictured, abandoned, graffiti on the walls, broken windows, 3 stories of destruction. Alpha unit in position, someone's voice came over Marco's radio. Bravo unit in position, another answered. Okay, Marco said. We'll be in 30 seconds. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. Harold held my hand. It was freezing. It'll be okay, he whispered. But his voice was shaking. Coming in now, Marco said. The camera panned. The door was smashed open with a battering ram. Bang! Wood splintered. Police officers filed in. Shouts in Italian. Police! Nobody move! The inside of the building was worse than the outside. Rubble, trash, dark. Marco's flashlight illuminated the way. First floor, Empty. Going up, Marco informed. Narrow staircase, broken steps, be careful with every step. Second floor. Empty, too. Is anyone here? Marco shouted in Italian and then in English. Thomas Wilson. Silence. Third floor, Marco said. The tension was unbearable. I gripped Harold's hand tightly. They reached the third floor, a corridor with several doors, all closed. Alpha unit, check left, Bravo, right, with me, straight ahead, Marco ordered. The officers split up. Marco continued on. The camera showed every door he passed, all locked. He kicked them in one by one. Empty, empty, empty. Then, at the last door in the hallway, Marco kicked. The door opened with a bang, and I saw. Thomas lay on the floor of a small, empty room. His hands were tied behind his back with rope. His feet were bound. A cloth was stuffed in his mouth as a gag. His clothes were dirty. His face was bruised. A black eye, a cut lip, dried blood on his forehead. But he was alive. Found it! Marco shouted into the radio. Third floor, last door. He ran to Thomas and knelt beside him. Thomas? Thomas Wilson? Can you hear me? Thomas slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were red and swollen. He tried to speak through the gag, but only muffled sounds came out. Marco carefully removed the gag. Thomas took a deep breath, coughed. Water. His voice came out hoarse, broken. Please, water. There'll be water soon. Marco began cutting the ropes from his hands. You're safe now. The police are here. My grandmother. Thomas tried to speak. My grandmother. I need. Your grandparents are watching everything. Marco pointed to the camera. They're here with me, through the phone call. Thomas looked directly into the camera, his eyes filled with tears. Grandma? His voice was a broken whisper. Grandma, are you there? I couldn't hold it. I'm here, I yelled at the computer. I'm here, Thomas. You're alive. You're alive. He began to cry, deep, painful sobs. Grandma, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Don't talk now. I tried to control myself, but the tears were falling. Stay quiet. Let them help you. Marco finished cutting all the ropes. Other officers entered with a stretcher, water, and a first aid kit. He's dehydrated. Marco examined him quickly. But he's alive. He'll be fine. They gave Thomas water. He drank desperately. Then he vomited. Then he drank again, more slowly this time. A paramedic arrived and began assessing the injuries. He needs hospital, the paramedic said in Italian. Marco translated, nothing critical, but he needs care. What about Amanda? Thomas managed to ask, his voice hoarse. What about Dante? The police are looking for you, Marco said. But don't worry about that now, you're safe. They began to place Thomas on the stretcher. The camera continued to capture everything. Then, from downstairs, screams. Let me go! I didn't do anything! A woman's voice echoed through the building. Amanda. They found her, Marco said into the radio. Status. Arrested. And the man too. They were trying to escape through the back, the voice replied. Marco's camera hurried down the stairs. When he reached the ground floor, I saw Amanda handcuffed, hair messed up, makeup smeared, screaming in Italian, then in English. It was him. It was Dante. I didn't know anything. He forced me. Beside her, Dante, also handcuffed. His face was grim. He said nothing. You have the right to remain silent, a police officer said in Italian. Amanda saw me through Marco's camera. Her eyes widened. Mrs. Margaret, she screamed. Mrs. Margaret, help me! I didn't do anything. They're accusing me of something I didn't do. I looked at that woman, that actress, that liar, and I just felt nothing. No anger, no pity, nothing. Take her, Marco said to the police officers. They took it, Amanda screaming, Dante silent. Marco returned to the third floor. Thomas was already on the stretcher, being carried down the stairs. I'll accompany him to the hospital, Marco informed us. I'll stay with him until you arrive. We'll get on the next flight, Richard said immediately. I'll arrange everything. You don't need to, I began, but he raised his hand. Yes, you do. I'll go with you. Let's get this boy together. The camera followed Thomas as he was loaded into the ambulance. Before the doors closed, he looked directly into the camera again. Grandma, Grandpa, I messed up everything. I destroyed everything. I don't deserve you. Stop, Harold said, his voice firm. You were deceived, Thomas, manipulated. It doesn't erase what you did, but you're still our grandson. Thomas closed his eyes, tears streaming down his bruised face. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm sorry for everything. The ambulance doors closed. The broadcast continued inside the ambulance. Marco spoke quietly to the paramedics. Thomas lay there, staring at the ceiling, crying silently. 20 minutes later, they arrived at the hospital. Thomas was rushed inside. Marco kept the camera rolling, following the cold, white corridors of the Italian hospital. Emergency! I heard someone shout. Emergency! They placed Thomas in an emergency room. Doctors and nurses moved quickly around him. Marco's camera captured everything from a corner of the room. A young doctor in a white coat began examining Thomas. He checked his heart rate, his blood pressure, and shone a small flashlight into his eyes. Severe dehydration, I heard him say in Italian. Marco translated quietly for us. Multiple bruises, possible mild concussion. We'll run imaging tests. Will he be okay? Marco asked in Italian. Yes, the doctor replied. Nothing life-threatening, but he needs to be hospitalized for at least 48 hours. Intravenous hydration, observation. I looked at Harold beside me. He had tears in his eyes, but also something I hadn't seen in weeks. Relief. He's alive, Harold whispered. Our boy is alive. It is... I squeezed his hand. Richard was on the phone across the room, talking rapidly, organizing. He hung up and came over to us. I booked 3 tickets on the 7 o'clock flight. We arrive in Rome tomorrow morning. I'll take care of the hotel, transportation, everything. You don't have to worry about anything other than seeing your grandson. Mr. Sullivan, I don't know how to thank you, I began. Don't thank me, he said simply. Let's just get this boy home. On the laptop screen, Thomas was being hooked up to an IV. A nurse carefully cleaned the wounds on his face. He grimaced in pain but didn't complain. Marco approached the stretcher. Thomas, your grandparents are catching a flight tonight. They'll be here tomorrow morning. I'll stay with you until then, okay? Thomas nodded, looking at the camera again. Grandma, Grandpa, you don't need to come here, I know. I know Grandpa is undergoing treatment. I don't deserve for you. Thomas Wilson, my voice was firm. You shut up now. We're going, and that's it. And when you're better, we're going to have a very serious talk about everything that happened. But now you rest. Listen to the doctors, and wait for us to arrive. Understand? He nodded, swallowing hard. I understood. Good. The nurse came to adjust the IV, finally allowing himself to relax. I'm going to turn off the camera now, Marco said softly. But I'll stay here with him. If anything happens, I'll call, and tomorrow morning you'll be with him. Promised. Thank you, Marco, she said. Thank you for everything. I nail it, he smiled for the first time. It's my job, and besides, Richard is an old friend. Anything for him, and for you. The screen went black. The 3 of us stood there in silence, processing everything we had just witnessed. He was in that place for 3 days, I whispered. 3 days, Harold. Tied up, hungry, thirsty, afraid. But he survived. Harold squeezed my hand. He's strong, just like us. Richard stood up. I'm going home to get ready. I'll pick you up at 5 o'clock, okay? Bring documents and enough clothes for about 3 days. Let's get this sorted and get Thomas back home. When he left, I sat there, staring at the black laptop screen. Maggie, Harold called after me. What are you thinking? I'm thinking, I replied slowly, that our grandson made a terrible mistake. He betrayed us. He hurt us. But he almost died because of it. And I don't think any mistake deserves death as punishment. Harold was silent for a moment. He's going to have to win back our trust, he said finally. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. I know. And we can't just pretend nothing happened. I know, I repeated. But, Harold sighed, he's our grandson, our blood, the only family we have left, and families forgive, even when it hurts. I looked at the man beside me, the man who was battling cancer, who had almost lost everything, who had every reason in the world to hold a grudge, and yet I chose forgiveness. When did you become so wise? I smiled through my tears. The same day you got so strong. He kissed my forehead. Let's pack our bags. Now come. We have a grandson to pick up. The flight was long, 13 hours from Detroit to Rome. Harold slept most of the time, exhausted. I couldn't sleep a wink. I kept imagining Thomas alone in that hospital, hurt, scared. Richard sat next to me during the flight, working on his laptop, making calls, organizing everything. You don't have to do all this, he said sometime in the early hours of the morning. You've already done so much for us. Margaret. He closed his laptop and looked at me. 32 years ago, I didn't do enough for my father. I let him die because I put business before family. I live with that regret every day. So, no. He shook his head. I need to do this. For you. For me. For a second chance I'll never get with my father. There was no answer to that. I just grabbed his hand and squeezed. Thank you, I whispered. We landed in Rome at 9 in the morning local time. A driver was waiting for us, obviously hired by Richard. We went straight to the hospital, San Giovanni Hospital, a modern building made of glass and concrete. Marco was waiting for us at the reception. In person, he was even more imposing. Tall, broad-shouldered, but with a gentle smile. Welcome to Italy. He shook our hands. I wish it were under better circumstances. How is he? I asked immediately. Better. Much better. He slept all night. He ate a little this morning. The doctors say he can be discharged tomorrow. He began guiding us through the hallways. But before you see him, you need to know one thing. We stopped. What? Harold asked tensely. He's devastated. Emotionally. He won't stop blaming himself, apologizing. The doctors are concerned about his psychological state. So please, Marco looked at us seriously. Be gentle. He's already punishing himself enough. I nodded. Harold did too. Marco took us to the room. 3rd floor, room 312. He knocked lightly on the door and opened it. And there he was, my grandson. Thomas was sitting up in bed, propped up by pillows. His face was still scarred, the black eye had darkened, the cut on his lip had stitches. There was a bandage on his forehead. He wore one of those hospital gowns, with an IV hooked up to his arm. When he saw us, his face completely fell. Grandma, Grandpa. His voice came out strangled. I ran. I didn't think. I just collapsed in my arms, crying like he hadn't cried since he was a child. I'm so sorry, Grandma. I'm so sorry. I was an idiot, a selfish person. I betrayed you. I sold Grandpa's car. I called you dramatic. I said horrible things. And Grandpa almost died because of me, and I don't deserve you to be here. Stop. I held his face with both hands, forcing him to look at me. Stop talking. Just breathe. He obeyed, breathing in sobs. Harold approached the other side of the bed. He placed his hand on Thomas's shoulder. You made mistakes, Thomas. Serious mistakes. You hurt us deeply. But, he squeezed his grandson's shoulder, you were also a victim. You were manipulated, deceived, used, and you almost died because of it. That doesn't excuse what I did, Thomas cried. No, Harold agreed. It doesn't excuse it, but it explains it, and it gives context. That woman, Amanda, she manipulated you from the beginning, made you believe lies, used you. I should have known. Thomas wiped away the tears with the back of his hand. All the signs were there, but I was so blind, so stupid. Love makes us blind sometimes, he said softly. You loved her. You trusted her. I can't blame you for that. But I sold the car. He looked at Harold. Grandpa, I sold my great-grandfather's car. The car you took care of for 15 years. I knew how much it meant to you. And yet, out of greed, Out of selfishness, I sold it. Harold was silent. I saw the conflict on his face. Then he sighed. You know what my dad said to me when he gave me that car? Harold sat on the edge of the bed. He said, Son, that car is just metal. What's really important is what it represents: family, memory, love. If you ever have to choose between that car and someone you love, choose that person. Always. He looked at Thomas. You chose wrong. You chose the wrong person, but deep down, you were trying to make someone happy. You were trying to live. And I can't blame you for wanting to live. Thomas cried harder. You should hate me. I hate myself. I don't hate you, Harold said firmly. Am I hurt? Yes. Disappointed? Very much. But do I hate you? No, because you're my grandson. And I love you, even when you disappoint me. I stood there, listening to my husband, the man who almost died, who lost almost everything, offering forgiveness. And my heart was filled with such great love that it hurt. Thomas, she said, still holding his face, you're going to have to earn back our trust. It will take time. It will be difficult. But we haven't given up on you. Understand? He nodded, swallowing hard. And about the inheritance, I began. I don't want an inheritance, he interrupted quickly. I don't deserve anything from you. Nothing. Let me finish, he said firmly. When your grandfather and I leave, you will inherit nothing material. No possessions, no money, nothing. I saw the pain cross his face, but he nodded. I understand. I deserve this. But, I continued, you will inherit something far more important. You will inherit the lesson that family is priceless. That trust is earned through actions, not words. And that forgiveness exists, but so do consequences. And we hope you will be a better man because of these lessons. Thomas looked at me, tears streaming down his face. I promise, I swear on everything that I will spend the rest of my life trying to make it up to you. Trying to be the grandson you deserve. I don't want to make up for it, Harold said. I just want you to learn, and never again let greed or selfishness guide your choices. Never again, Thomas promised. We stood there, the three of us, holding each other. A family broken, but not destroyed. Hurt, but still standing. Marco and Richard watched from the doorway, respecting the moment. After a while, Thomas finally asked, And the car? The charger? The buyer? It's in our garage, Harold said. Mr. Sullivan returned it. For free. Thomas looked at Richard, his eyes wide. Did you return it? I gave it back, Richard entered the room. And I paid for your grandfather's treatment too. Why? Thomas asked, genuinely confused. Why would I do that? I caused all of this. I'm to blame. Because everyone deserves a second chance, Richard said simply. Even those who make big mistakes. But, he pointed at Thomas, don't waste this chance. Many people don't get it. Thomas nodded solemnly. I won't waste it. I promise. Thomas was discharged the next day. We returned to Brazil 3 days later. We had to wait while the Italian police finalized the statements. Amanda and Dante were formally charged with kidnapping, extortion, fraud, and a long list of other crimes. The lawyer Richard hired assured Thomas that he wouldn't be charged with anything. He was a victim, not an accomplice. The flight back was different. Thomas sat between Harold and me. We talked about everything, about Amanda, about how she manipulated him, about the signs he ignored, but also about the future, about reconstruction, about second chances. When we landed in America, there was a car waiting for us, the '69 Dodge Charger. Richard had arranged for him to be taken to the airport. Thomas stopped when he saw it. That bright orange, those classic lines, that piece of history. Grandpa. Her voice was trembling. I can't. I don't even deserve to look at him. No, Harold agreed. You don't deserve it. Not yet. But one day, if you work hard, if you prove you've changed, if you earn back our trust. He tossed the keys to Thomas, who caught them in his reflection. One day, maybe you'll drive it with me, like I drove it with my dad. Thomas held the keys as if they were sacred. Tears welled up again. "I'll deserve it," he whispered. "I swear I will." "Then let's go home," he said. "All together, as a family." And we went. In the '69 Dodge Charger, Harold driving, me in the passenger seat, Thomas in the back seat. 3 generations, 3 stories, 1 family. Broken, but not destroyed.